everybody.
Good morning, Crow, and everyone.
Last day of February. The year is 2/12 over. It's almost 2024. We'll give everybody a moment or two to log into the agenda. If you have any items you want to add as opens, please do. Got a couple businessy things to talk about, and then we can dive into fun developer stuff. Remember. All right, folks. Do we have any new friends today that wanted to introduce themselves?
Yeah, hey, I'm Namita. I've been joining the other working group since my first time here for the best practices. I work with Comcast. So yeah, nice to be here.
Welcome, welcome. We're glad to have you. Any other new friends that wanted to introduce themselves? All righty. Could I please ask a participant here to assist in scribing notes today?
I can help.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate that. Couple businessy things to deal with. I don't know if the foundation sent it out broadly, but it went out to the TAC and other lists that I'm on. We have finalized the 2023 election process. So we will be electing or re-electing the TAC here very shortly. So if you're interested in participating, the first step is to register to vote. So that is the first link there under voter eligibility. So if you are interested in participating to vote, please fill out that form. Just takes 30 seconds or so. You'll need your GitHub ID. If you are interested in running for the TAC, there is a self-nomination form. That takes more than 30 seconds to fill out. That would be the second, the TAC candidate form. So if you're interested in running for the TAC to trying to help steer the technical direction of the foundation, throw your hat in the ring with that form. And then there is another category, the SCIR. So there is a security community individual representative. So this is someone from the open source security community that works very closely with the board. So if you feel, if you're not affiliated with a member org, feel free, and you want to participate in, again, helping govern and steer the foundation, you can self-nominate yourself for the SCIR. And there are, oh, I cut out the details. When I'm not talking, I'll grab the details. There's a schedule with which this is going to happen, but basically the nomination, the voting will be done. So we'll have the TAC elected by the end of March. Any questions about that? Roger Dodger. Next up, next week, we will be presenting this working group to the TAC. Every quarter, we are responsible for providing feedback as to the working group's activities and kind of status of any projects, initiatives, or SIGs. So I've put together a brief Google slide that I am waiting on Randall and Glenn to give me SKF updates. But if anyone else had any additional feedback, please drop me a comment on that doc. I will be forwarding that over to the TAC probably Friday so they can pre-read if they desire. Any questions about our TAC update?
I'll try to get you those updates. I'll talk to Glenn today and try to
Awesome.
get you those updates.
Doesn't need to be super in depth. Like if you were implementing labs or updating backend for, like, Mr. Wheeler is always updating something. So we'll have a steady stream of framework updates from him on the badges or whatnot.
Fair.
All right. There is a call for papers for OpenSSF Day at the OSSNA Summit, which will be held in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada in May. That's going to close off on May 17th. So if this group is interested in presenting anything representing any of our projects, initiatives, or SIGs, feel free to submit to that CFP, and I will track down a link for that again once I'm not yammering on. Any questions about that? All right, there will be a town hall for the OpenSSF where our esteemed members, Christine and Jay, will be presenting about their efforts on the DE&I subcommittee. So this is a town hall that's open to the general public, but we generally get several hundred attendees. It's recorded and just kind of giving a status update on assorted things. So we'll be talking about our DE&I efforts within the education SIG. They'll be giving an alpha and omega update. And I believe Mr. Bressers is going to give us an SBOMs everywhere update. So that'll be an exciting thing. And again, I will track down specifics. You do need to register for that. I'll get the URL for that here in a moment once I'm done talking. Any questions about the town hall? All right, let's move into the exciting part. If you have any additional opens you want to add to the agenda, please do so right below the new friends section. I am going to ask our folks talking about the C and C++ best practices guide, if you just want to give a brief update on where things are with that while I get some links. As you may know, we elected to start up a new project around refining our C and C++ compiler options document. Our friends at Ericsson have a fairly mature document that they will be contributing to us. We're going to use as a baseline, and then we'll be weaving in some of the additional materials like David had started, and a couple others of us had poked at about a year or so ago. So there is a note to where the pull request is for that information. So if you're interested in keeping track of that or participating, don't hesitate to show up. Meetings are every other Wednesday starting 23 hours from now. So tomorrow at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we will have the C and C++ compiler guide chat. Any questions about the compiler guide?
I do have one. It's really a procedural question, frankly. I've been in so many meetings. It's hard for me. I sometimes lose the track a little bit. Do we need to procedurally accept the Ericsson one? Because if we do, I want to make sure the answer is yes. If there's a process thing, I want to make sure we have agreed. Let's pull it in. I'm excited about this getting moving. But if we're waiting for an agreement from this group, then I'd like to raise it, look around, say yay. Which I suspect is the answer, and then move on. Are we yay at this point, or has that kind of been assumed already?
I will do the opposite of that. Does
Ah.
anyone have any objections or counter suggestions to not accept the Erickson contribution at this time? Do you have an alternate proposal? If not, we will proceed with merging the Erickson data.
So I sure don't want to oppose it. I have no issue personally with this. They're welcome to contribute their content. But I know that normally LF does some kind of, at least for software, right? There is some process for like IP clearance and whatnot. Does that matter here? I think David has a point. I mean, procedurally, the working group should, make a decision that yes, we're welcoming this content. We're going to take over control over that content, which, the working group could say, well, thank you, but no, we don't want that burden or whatever, right? It's not the content we care about. But I think
that's
beyond
already-
that,
Yeah,
I don't
Arnaud,
know.
I see you're going. I believe that's already happened. I mean,
Okay,
the main
then that's
requirements.
cool.
Yeah, I mean, the basic requirements is, is there a license attached? And well, I think there is a license. It's CC BY. I
Yeah.
believe.
Oh, did they
It's
do
got
CC
to.
by? Okay, that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah,
There should be some copyright and
right.
license.
There
yes.
needs to be a copyright license, and in the end, if there's a trademark that that specific for that particular work, then we need to deal with that. And if there's a domain, in this particular case, there's no domain. I believe. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I thought it was CC BY, but I may be mistaken, but I think it was. I mean, we can see from the proposal, right?
Did
We could
George
follow.
or anyone from Erickson pop on? How about we address this tomorrow in that call?
Okay.
And if anyone has any strong objections, please note that as a comment
Okay.
on
How's
that
this?
PR.
With the caveat that it's released under our guidance, which basically is CC BY. This isn't planned to be a specification, so it's guidance. So presuming that they follow our rules for CC BY, that either there's no trademarks or they're assigned, there's no domain name, no domains to worry about, then that's what we would review in this initial review.
Yeah,
there's
and
no
I had
patent
routed
issues.
George to the process that's documented in the TAC repo.
So presuming all that, and by the way, I believe this repo that they're putting it into already says CC BY license. No, well, I'm sorry. Actually, the license is Apache 2. We probably ought to clarify that there's actually 2 licenses here. But yeah.
All right, we'll make that one of the first points of the call tomorrow. But if anyone has any strong objections or counter proposals, please note that or show up in the call tomorrow, and we'll get moving forward on that, ideally very shortly. All right, David, would you like to talk about the concise guides?
Yeah, so this is a proposal here. I have a minor proposal to tweak the concise guide for evaluation. This basically came up because, it says it's a guide for evaluating open source software. And I think when we wrote this, we were thinking, hey, for software developers bringing in libraries. But it turns out that there's end user software as well, and people who aren't always as sophisticated. And though we could rewrite it more generally, most of it reads well enough for that case, except that there's an implication that the person who brings in the software will directly evaluate the software. But that's actually not always true, even for developers. Oftentimes you ask somebody else. You may even pay somebody else to do the evaluation. So I'd like to tweak it a little bit so that, hey, you can do your own evaluation, or you can ask someone else to do it for you. I think that's a reasonable alternative. You can see the specifics there. Any objections to this change? You can see the specifics on the links. I also add a link to the OpenSSF's list of security reviews, because that's one way you can find out if somebody else has reviewed it.
right, I see several thumbs up. Any opposed? Yeah, so I think we're good to go ahead and merge that.
Okay, I have a superpower. It's being able to push the button that says merge pull request. I have pushed it. Look at this. We've already progressed. Although, you know what? The date's wrong at the top. Do we actually want to keep that date? No. All right. I'm going to make a quick motion. Let's just remove the date on the top. I mean, it's
Second,
a version control second. It's a version control system. Yes, please. All right. I'll do that after call, but
excellent, excellent.
Yeah, I was going to say, David, I don't think this requires some kind of motion and, formal decision by the group to change.
yeah, but we're all here. I'd rather.
Yes,
That's so
yeah, I
much.
know, but I get you. But,
Yeah.
we're in trouble if people start getting upset over this kind of stuff.
Fair enough, but it's more. It's not so much voting. I think voting is the last desperate if we absolutely must. But I'd rather work by broad consensus. But more specifically, I'd rather know if there is an objection.
Well, and ideally, I'd like us to get to the point where we're doing a lot of this bookkeeping through issues and PRs.
Yeah.
And we can curate the list through our agenda if there's anything that needs broader group discussion, and then just have people chime in via GitHub on their opinions on stuff like, smaller stuff like this. All right. Let's talk about the source code management best practices guide. Who would like to lead that discussion?
Can you repeat, Grope? I lost you halfway through.
The source code management best practices guide agenda item you put in the agenda, Mr. Wheeler.
Wait, okay. All right.
So while David refreshes his memory, you will remember that we had agreed another project we're going to work on is a source code management best practices guide. A group of us are meeting every other week, and those calls are those are every other Thursday at 10 a.m. The next call will be on the in the future.
The 9th.
The night, yes, it dropped off my calendar.
In the future, sometime. That's a good. Yeah, you're not wrong.
And so Noam has had some good content that we were starting to use as a baseline, and then Dan has put this into a delightful little app called CryptPad, where we can simultaneously edit and preview how it might look. So Dan has staged a kind of just a draft right now of we are starting to ingest the content and starting to think about how we want to organize it. So would anyone else like to talk about this exciting topic?
I don't think there's much to say other than what you said. The last meeting we talked, there was another GNOME also circulated a spreadsheet which also broke down some suggested organizational points. The idea is to take the document, which is, here's the CryptPad link, which careful with that link, it's an edit. That link allows edit rights, so don't spread it around. But you can see from that document, it's very much oriented around GitHub and GitLab. And the point of this is to try and reorganize it in terms of functionally, what are we talking about? And then have the thing to do in GitHub, the thing to do in GitLab, and then potentially the thing to do in other SCM projects as well. And so there's this organization of some suggested top level orgs, and then GNOME circulated another thing which was in the form of a Google sheet that broke down the things into a different set of but overlapping set of organizational top level organizational items, which I took the action to try and resolve, and I haven't done that yet, but I will do it before the next call, the SCM thing. Yeah.
And in addition to that, we're also looking at figuring out who's going to be reading this best practices guide and organizing it in a way that would make sense for them. And so one of the other action items that are coming out of this is to think about the personas. And so some of the personas could be folks who deal with a lot of repos or the repo maintainer. And then the other thing that we are also looking at is reorganizing some of the content in terms of like operations, like how does somebody think about it, SCM, if they're doing something for the first time, like creating a repo or an organization.
Any questions for the group? I see Judy has one. You want to talk about that real quick, Judy?
Oh, hi, everybody. It looks, first of all, this CryptPad is the first time I've seen this, so thank you for sharing. I'm in awe, and I'm going to look into this. It looks, first glance, in the last 5 minutes, it looks great. My initial question was how the severities were being rated, were they linked back to CWE or CVSS scoring, or how did we come up with those? Anybody, that'd be great. Thank you.
I can answer this one. It actually comes from our product. It's kind of a heuristic, no real rules. So in the working group documents, I removed in the spreadsheet, I removed the severities because I want us to discuss it in the group to decide what is the right direction. It has many variables, so we should discuss it next week. And by the way, thanks for the update. I actually missed the last meeting, so I have no idea what we have done with my spreadsheet. So thanks for that. Hope this answered the question.
The spreadsheet was great. I was looking at the spreadsheet. I was like, yes, this is great. So yeah, really, yeah. And by the way, on CryptPad, the link that I circulated, that is a self-hosted. So CryptPad is an open source project. That particular link is self-hosted at w3ctag.org because that's a self-hosted one that we use in one of the other groups that I'm in the tag group in W3C. However, if you want to just try out CryptPad in general, you can also just try it out on cryptpad.fr, which is their main thing.
Thanks, Dan. Yeah, I was wondering. Thank you. That's brilliant.
Yes.
Yeah, and thanks for the update on the severity. I'll watch the space on the decisions on how you're going to, because it is all about context, I suppose.
So I'm assuming that we're going to be editing this a little bit while and eventually pulling into GitHub itself, correct?
Yeah.
For
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, our
And
final
on the-
work product will be in GitHub. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Christine. Sorry.
Yeah, on the severity point, one of the things that came from the previous meeting, David suggested we look into scorecards or kind of like matching up some of the information from there. So that probably will play into the decision of the severity as well.
Awesome. Any additional questions or feedback about either of the guides? Okay, we have a couple of our member projects had typed in some updates, so please take a moment and just take a peek at that. I will showcase our friends over in Scorecard are going like wildfire right now. They've had a lot of pretty substantial updates, including that their API just went GA. So please take a look at that, and feel free. I think I have their note. I think Azim and crew got their meeting agenda and notes put at the stage at the top of our document. So if you're curious, you can go look at their repo or their meeting notes. So at this point, do we have any opens we would like to discuss as part of our time together? Mr. Wheeler.
Yeah, one. I put it in the security fundamentals course, but
Yeah.
there's there is an interesting discussion. And this is highly technical, but one of those which I've been struggling for information. So, historically in HTML, if you add a target value in an A tag, it refers to anything other than, well, underscore self, it can lead to a vulnerability. If this sounds highly specific and technical, you ain't kidding. That said, historically, there have been some potential security problems. So the pull request is 108. It's in the link. There right now is a discussion of browsers have made some changes in an attempt to counter this problem. Is this now a historical problem? And it turns out that it's very, very hard. There's endless discussions about, well, there's a problem. Here's a countermeasure. It's not clear if we've solved it or not. Is this historical? Is this still a problem? What is the problem? So if anybody has any
This sounds like
suggestions-
something I should take a look at.
Oh,
Yeah.
wait. I just go, who's the I here?
This
Dan?
is me,
Dan.
Yeah, yeah.
Dan
Well,
oh,
I mean,
Dan,
from a, because like, not only that, but maybe I could bring this to the attention of some of the folks in the Chromium team who specifically work on security and ask them if they think it's a problem.
that
Can
would
I
be
maybe also chime in?
Oh, please.
Yeah, so, you know, the example you gave, for example, is like tab nabbing, right? Where,
Yes.
for example, you click on a link and then that link is connected still to the parent, and you can actually do URL and host rewrite, and you can then rewrite the previous parent, and you
Right.
can then do nice phishing attacks, stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah, I made myself look like a clown in the last trainings I did because I have a nice lab about it. And I tried it in every browser that I got on my operating system. And indeed, it is not, it's an issue from the past. Now, there is something to say, of course, you know, if we still want to teach it or add the fixes to it, because, yeah, reality is not everybody updates and uses the latest version of browsers, right? So that's a bit where where I also have the issue, like, yeah, theoretical, if you use one of the latest versions of browsers, it is not an issue anymore. But again, if you're, yeah, not so security aware and you use an old browser, yeah, you have that issue, but probably you have bigger issues than that.
There we go. I don't
Yeah.
think that we, you know, if the moral of the story is that if you use an old browser, old security vulnerabilities will happen. This is not news, and it's just not worth. I would, if it's an old and no longer relevant, I'd rather just cut the material. A life is hard enough to teach stuff without teaching stuff that's no longer relevant. I mean, it would be fine to have a very short statement that said, hey, this used to be a problem. The browsers have changed it because of blah. Therefore,
Yes.
not a problem. I think that's where we're going. But my problem is I've got a number of statements that suggest we think we may have solved it, but no assertions it's resolved. And that's, you know,
Well,
I think
know,
we're
but then,
missing the context, because if you you don't have the chance to update your machine for whatever reason, it is still relevant for you. What we have to say,
Sure.
it is for this particular, or it applies to. So
no, because if you're running a browser that's 3 years old, you're already doomed. Okay, there's really no point.
What if it's an embedded device?
But
you
I mean,
can't
even 3
update?
years
You're
ago,
doomed.
even 3 years ago, most browsers were auto updating.
Yeah,
So
right.
yeah,
Exactly.
I mean, you know, it's browsers have been auto updating for a while. So
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, if you're using an embedded device, then you need to make sure that your web browser is only accessing services that you trust never attack you.
Yeah, the
Because
problem is it comes on exercise machines and refrigerators and stuff like that, where the browser
I'll
never
be
gets
right back.
updated.
I gotta
Right,
update
but-
my fridge.
Yeah, but in those cases, typically the fridge is locked to particular sites. It doesn't just, if well,
Not the
then you're
Samsung
doomed.
one, man.
Okay, you're doomed. I mean, seriously, there's no point in trying to explain the impossible. Now, I do think it's appropriate to briefly mention this used to be a problem, if that's the case. If it's still a problem, then we need to say so and where it is and what to deal with it. But I don't want to explain how to avoid a problem that isn't a problem anymore.
So if I could get the group to put your feedback into PR 108.
Yes.
And Dan mentioned that he would talk about it with the Chromium folks and see it comes some of his other contacts, so we can actually maybe get straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak, the browser folks. That would be helpful.
Yep. And I would be delighted to get rid of it, or something short like, this is a problem and then it was solved and here's how. That would actually be my ideal, would be, this was a problem, here's how it was solved, and we move on. Because there's no point in spending a lot of cycles trying to explain a problem that is historical.
Well, can I add some fuel on the fire? What about cross-site request forgery protection? Because, as you know, nowadays, in the past, browsers also protect against it using the same site cookie and all that good stuff.
Right. We actually do talk about that. And in fact, that one's actually already addressed. Where it's actually countered in multiple ways. The same site cookie does counter it for the general case. Pretty much all frameworks use the hidden tokens also. And frankly, having both, but it's much easier to explain. We don't really have to go far. We just tell them, hey, use a framework that does this, and use the same site cookies, which are the default, and we move on.
Yeah, true.
So that's already handled.
Yeah, you would argue if let's say you don't have you have a framework that doesn't do the token, but you have the same site. So would that be then enough, right?
Usually. Right.
Well, theoretically, yes, because all the browsers support it, but
all the browsers support it, but there are people. Here's the problem: there are people, particularly people who like to get paid, who turn off the same site stuff. Okay, because a lot of ad vendors want you to turn off the same site. Yes, because as you know, privacy is a real problem. With some effort, we can get rid of it.
Our friends in the EU should cover your ears. That's David's opinion.
No, that is, I say it sarcastically because I'm not a fan. Okay. But that said, the problem is there are folks who are paid to turn off those protections. Okay.
Yes, but
so they need to know.
For all the other things that is not the session cookie, that's okay, right? But for your session cookie, you should indeed have that same site to very restrictive mode. And then you have also CSRF protection, but only if you use latest browsers, right? So, yeah.
It's been true for a couple of years now. So we've been telling people to do both. It's because that's cheap, that's easy, and it deals with the problem of people who turn off the same site stuff, which they shouldn't, but people do. Yes, Dan.
Does your document already talk about things like Spectre and Meltdown and weird cross-process, exploits and
hardware
stuff like
side
that?
channels?
Yeah.
I don't. It may briefly talk about it. The problem there is that Meltdown and Spectre are really important for kernel authors and for people who are writing crypto libraries. That's not the primary expected audience for this.
Virtualization and container folks too.
Fair enough, but same problem. If you but for virtualization container, it's not someone who is creating a container. It's someone who's creating the runtime that runs the container where this really hits you. But most people aren't doing that. So while it's important, Let's see here. I don't know that we do.
There's a lot of stuff that's coming. So in my other life, I'm in tag. We review. This is a weird. This is very strange. I don't know, convergence here, because in tag group that I mentioned, we spend a lot of time reviewing other people's web specifications, and there are a lot of new things that are coming specifically out of the Chromium security team that are all trying to address these issues around processor origin, things that try and defeat the security origin policy of the web by using cross-process timing attacks and stuff like that. And so it might be worth, this is a perfect topic for the workshop that we should be having in June, frankly, where we bring W3C and web security people and OpenSSF people together. So yeah,
My legal team advises me
good
not to say anything
example of
about
that.
Spectre Meltdown.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, so the course does talk briefly about side channel attacks. It doesn't talk really primarily within the scope of crypto libraries. So it talks about timing attacks and cache attacks and so on. We don't talk about Spectre and Meltdown specifically, but basically it notes the existence of that. But really what we're suggesting is, hey, these kinds of attacks exist. When you're selecting crypto systems, they often are targets of these kinds. So you need to make sure that any crypto you use is implemented to counter those. And this is the challenge here. The audience is a general app developer. I am painfully aware of Spectre Meltdown. I actually led a group. Yes, you can cover yours, Grove. I actually led a team that dealt with guidance and response to Spectre and Meltdown within a certain large government agency where that really matters. But the expected audience for this is different. Now we can change our mind. Feel free. Dan, yes, no. I mean, do you think?
I was just
my
curious,
hope is to
really.
scope it.
I was just curious. I should go and review the document myself. And
please. If you think there's something missing, missing is always the hardest thing to determine in any document. So for example, I did walk against the OWASP top 10, both the previous and current version, the CWE top 25, which is actually a top 40, both the previous and current versions. So we cover all those. We cover all the Saltz and Schroeder. Mr. Krob, your ears were covered and then your hands are up.
No. If we're interested, some of the training material my organization is donating to the education SIG is around troubleshooting hardware vulnerabilities like side channels. So if we're interested, and I also happen to know many of the researchers that discovered many of these vulnerabilities, if we feel that would be useful for the common body of knowledge, we could try to coordinate finding information if it's useful for developers to have this stuff outside of like crypto. For crypto folks, it's critical, but for a lot of other folks, it's not quite as interesting.
Yeah, I love the idea of making that kind of thing a separate doc. I mean, I have a double E degree, so I can be dangerous in electronics as well. But I think there's so many software developers there are a number of folks who are doing code development. They'll develop the hardware and the software simultaneously. It makes sense to have some overlap, but I think a lot of people never touch the hardware. They wouldn't know a resistor if it smacked them in the face. So I think making those as separate documents would be wiser, because so many won't know or won't want to care and won't have a need to. And then we can point to it.
Right.
So Dan and Glenn and everybody else, thank you so much for helping me track this down, because it's been one of those my Google foo is just not good enough. I find lots of people discussing.
Well, you
But
should use
no-
Bing and Chat GPT.
You know, ChatGPT will confidently give me an answer.
It will.
Or
But
tell you to break
I-
up with, or tell you to break up with your spouse. Depending on
you know, in spite of that, it really is amazing tech. It's going to change a whole lot of things, but the problem in this case is I don't need an answer. I need a justification and evidence that's actually the correct answer. So
I, for one, welcome our new robot overlords. I want that documented for the record. Alexa, Siri, Google.
okay, thank you. That I'm done.
All right. Do we have any other opens we would like to discuss today? Good conversation so far.
Crow, just an update. I'm going to send you that email for the SKF meeting here shortly.
Oh, okay. Do you want to talk about the SKF meeting, or this is
Glenn, do you want my
organization
I'm
business,
still
or is this like a-
semi-sick, so like, yeah. Glenn, do you want to? Basically, we're talking about a meeting to like discuss SKF things how like additions that'll go into SKF, improvements. We're talking to Jay and a bunch of different people about different things that we want to do, and we just think it would be good to involve and keep OpenSSF in the loop. And we also think it would be good to bring some of our Linux Foundation friends to a gathering point there as well.
That sounds great. I'd like to go to that meeting. I don't have enough meetings.
But yes, I will send that out here shortly. I'm getting organized.
Great. No, I think that'll be very useful. I would strongly encourage anyone interested in SKF, which has been a member project since almost the beginning. Great tool, kind of the linchpin of a lot of our ideas around the education SIG. So I think more participation and collaboration there would be very useful for everybody.
I'm just going to give a brief update on the topic of best practices for maintainers. There's a topic going on about CVE issuance for disclosing vulnerabilities in software that you vendor. Is that ringing a bell, Krog?
Like I said, I don't have enough meetings.
Okay.
It's really easy for me to keep them all straight.
That's fair. Anyways, so there's a discussion. I'm pretty sure it's this group, the best practice working group around,
Or the Vuln group.
and well, it's a little bit of both. It's about how if you are a maintainer of a piece of software and that piece of software vendors dependencies. For example, you take a dependency that is a jar and then repackage that inside of your project in a way. Basically, you take a dependency and you repackage it in such a way that it's not easy for your downstream consumers to update their dependencies, update transitive dependencies. If you have a vulnerability in a vendor dependency, you should be issuing a advisory with the same existing CVE number stating which version of your product fixes that vulnerability. And so I am working with somebody at Red Hat. I have somebody on the calendar.
I've heard of them.
To try to discuss that topic and come up with a short guide for that topic. So there's a thread in the best practices working group as far as I know, if anybody's interested in that topic.
You opened an issue 114.
Yes, 114. So if anybody's interested in that topic, feel free to ping me on Slack or respond to that issue in the GitHubs.
In the issue 114. Randall.
I was gonna say that there's also an ongoing conversation right now in what Linux is calling the next gen packaging systems, because Canonical decided
Wait, who's Linux? Linux Foundation?
Linux community, the Linux community.
The Linux kernel community. Okay.
Well,
Okay.
you know,
who's Linux kernel? Who's
I
community?
call Linux the group, like we're Greg, Linus, the Gen 2 people, those people, if you want to call it those people.
Okay, you're talking certain Linux distros.
Basically.
Okay.
The people in IRC, let me put it to you that way. That
Right.
make it clear because there's certain people that like argue these topics.
Okay.
Debate.
Yeah, debate. That's the correct word.
Okay.
But
So certain Linux distros. Thank you. Go ahead.
certain system integrators that work in Linux, I don't know, whatever you want to say. Because let me finish what I was going to say. So Canonicals decided to endorse snaps, where there was a movement late last year to endorse Flatpak. And there's a lot of security jargon that's being thrown around and a lot of investment that's being done around these security improvements. And I don't know if they're all necessarily security improvements, but we've never really talked about these groups. And I don't know if that's something we want to talk about eventually, because there is a lot of investment going into both of these next gen packaging ecosystems. And there's a lot of talk about how they operate, why they operate the way that they do and whatnot. And I feel like to a certain degree, they're operating with no oversight, so they can kind of say whatever they want to say. And I think that that's going to end up being a problem.
So this feels like a different topic than what Jonathan was chatting about first.
It is a different topic.
So if we could put a pin in that for a second, do we have any
Sure.
additional thoughts for Jonathan's 114 PR?
Is it okay?
Was that what you had your hand raised for, David? The vendored dependencies?
Yes, that is.
And then we can circle back to Randall's next gen packaging.
Yeah, so I'm looking right now for Jonathan, if you wouldn't mind posting, is the link in our meeting notes? Because I'm not seeing it.
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, yeah. All right. So I would suggest, Jonathan, that first of all, I'm actually fine with the idea of if you vendor it, the CV applies to you too. But if that's the rule, that would apply not just to open source, but to all closed source vendors who, typically release products with a lot of components inside them, and they're vendoring them basically in many, many, many cases.
You're not wrong. It's just that yes, you're not wrong. It's just
Okay.
The people that I can speak to are open source maintainers. But yes,
I got that. But the thing is, you're implying a reading of the CVE. May I recommend that you go back to the CVE community and tell them we're planning to interpret CVEs this way. Are you good with that?
I mean, this is if you look at any current CVE, you will see that as the CVE lifecycle continues, vendors do disclose vulnerabilities, or just they like look at any old CVE and you'll see that Oracle, Apache Software Foundation, all of those other links get added to that CVE stating this project, that project, this other project, all fixed this CVE at this point in our history. And so this is me not like interpreting CVE this way. This is a well-established process that you can see on any existing CVE number.
Okay. All right. I that wasn't as clear. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, it's just I think it will be wise to coordinate with the CVE folks, even though this is past practice. It's past practice for the closed source, but I'm not sure it's always as consistent as it should be. And if we're going to do this for the open source as well, frankly, I think it makes sense. I think we want to talk to, this is the thing we're going to suggest.
Jonathan's verbification threw me, but I understand what he's going for.
Yeah, sure. CVs, the CV board and the CV teams are traditionally really hard to get in communication with, but sure.
If you need help, I know some people.
I know some people too, but it's always a nightmare. If you want to help, Krove, I'd be happy to tap your resources on that one though.
If you can write me a well-written email, and I will take that and approach my friends within the CVE community.
Yeah, I'm not asking for a vote. It's just a quick informal coordination even.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
But even if they don't agree, at least having the discussion of why not. I suspect they'd agree, but hadn't thought about it.
Yeah.
It's the honest
Yeah,
answer.
what they don't want is I don't think they want a bunch of vendors publishing CVEs stating, hey, we fixed the CVE. They want one CVE for a vulnerability and a bunch of vendors publishing saying, we all fixed the CVE. Here are the links that reference that we fixed it.
Right. They don't want a million copies of a CVE. They want one CVE and all the products that they link to. So it's consistent with what they've done, but I don't think they've realized that this is one of those cases.
Yeah.
So
And we also could talk to OSV and the GSD folks.
right.
I'm also talking to GitHub and Madison Oliver about, hey, can maintainers publish CVEs or publish GitHub security advisories with existing CVEs? And can you go and update the upstream CVE for them? So that's like a thing that automatically happens. And Madison so they don't do that now, but that's something that they could do in the future for us to just make the maintainer life easier for who are using GitHub.
Alexi.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm new here. Let me chime in on that subject of next gen packaging, because it actually calls back to the subject of transitive dependencies and CVEs in them, because Flatpaks, snaps, container images, for that matter, they all include a bunch of things in a kind of in a flat-packed way, pun intended, where there is no particular regard to a dependency on some other package. Rather, it's just included as it is. And when it comes to, for example, addressing particular CV, a Flatpak almost always has to be reissued if something inside of it contains a vulnerability now. So that's, I think I have to agree with David that it's just something that CVE people might not realize, but it's already happening in a very, very widespread manner, both in open source and in closed source community. And by the way, David, I think it's the first time we see each other on Kitsun Ural, the Russian translator of the Core Infrastructure Initiative Best Practice Badge.
Oh my goodness. Hello. Yes, we've we've sent many emails, but it's a pleasure to see you in person.
Yeah. Hi, David.
Hey.
Excellent.
I still owe you some handling of Russian complications, so we can chat later.
I got totally upset with that translation platform and just veered away. Sorry about that.
That's no problem. For those who don't know, it turns out that different languages can sometimes be different in a way that someone who doesn't speak it was not expecting. So I have learned many things about languages over time. So thank you for educating me.
Most welcome.
So any additional feedback or comments for either Jonathan's vendoring PR or the kind of next gen Flatpak conversation?
Not a PR yet, but topic.
No, you have a PR.
I don't have a PR. I have an issue. I don't have a PR.
You have an issue. I'm sorry, your issue.
Okay, it's issue 760 or
issue 114.
114.
I put that in the notes.
In the meeting notes?
In the meeting notes.
I'm not seeing.
Or is it up wherever the hell?
I'm looking at meeting notes in our meeting notes and I don't see it.
I haven't opened our meeting notes.
Oh, it's down towards the bottom. It got smushed into your fundamentals.
Oh, I don't know why it's in the fundamentals. That's
we'll have
a different topic.
Let's rearrange.
Yeah, let me. I have the amazing.
Actually, grab both of those and move them up.
Okay, I have the amazing power of cut and paste. So if everyone give me just a second, I will move it elsewhere. So if nothing else, I can find it.
I'll be chatting with Rodrigo Ferrari from Red Hat. So that's the person that I'm working with on this guide, hopefully.
Tell him Krob says hey.
Okay, we'll do.
And meow.
Okay. Randall, your hand's still up. You got topic for this, or is it just lingering hand? presume lingering hand.
All right, so any additional comments about either issue 114 or the next gen packaging problem? We probably should discuss both of these more in the near future.
Crow, would it be helpful if I invite Alex Larson from Red Hat to come speak about flat packs and what he was trying to do?
Sure. We'd like to get smart.
Sure.
I like to learn something every meeting, and I have a lot of opportunities for that.
That was good.
All right. Any additional questions, comments, anything to discuss? All right, we chatted about a lot of things today. Thank you all for your participation, and we will see you all very soon. And again, tomorrow is the C and C++ guide little group, so feel free to join us there to talk more about that. Enjoy the rest of your day, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.